Entrepreneur MBA podcast purpose is to help existing business owners grow their companies past the 10 million in revenue per year benchmark. Here is your host, Stephen Halasnik.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephen Halasnik, and I'm co-founder of Financing Solutions. For those of you who don't know about Financing Solutions, we provide very easy to set up lines of credit for small businesses. And I will be your host for today's Entrepreneur MBA podcast. If you are interested in learning more about our business line of credit program, please visit fscreditline.com. That's FS as in Financing Solutions, creditline.com. Almost my whole career, I've always had a credit line in place. I think it's extremely valuable. So it's something for you to consider. Over the last 25 years, I've built 6 companies in the $5 million to $25 million range, including 2 companies that have made the Inc. 500 fastest growing companies in the United States. I love learning from people with business experience. And today I am very excited to be speaking with Elma and Dove Levy from Eldov Group, LLC. Dove and Elma Levy are first-generation life partners as well as business partners. They came to the U.S. from different parts of the world, Israel and the Netherlands, and built a life and a very successful business together. The business grew from startup in their attic to a mature multi-million-dollar enterprise. The first business transaction in May of 2019 resulted in a change of control to an international PE firm, and with the final transaction, in October of 2021, the company became part of a larger consulting firm. Elma and Dove are married now for 40 years or 40 plus years, have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. They are often asked about the challenges of working together as life partners and what their secret is to making it work. Elma and Dove, welcome to today's Entrepreneur MBA podcast.
Thank you, Stephen. Happy to be here.
Well, that's going to be such a great podcast. There's just so many different angles on this.
Where to begin?
Yeah, no, I always know where to begin. Again, I don't know if I know where to end, but yeah. So let me start off with this question because it's the first one that came up to my mind. Is being in a romantic relationship and being partners any different than if you are just 2 partners who are not in a romantic relationship but partners in a business?
Do you want me to take that? It is and it isn't in a way. And I'll start first with why it is. If you're friends, and I have worked with small business owners that have a lifelong friendship or, know each other from college or whatever, and they get along extremely well. So you're friends and you start this business together and it's very compatible. In any conflict situation, and you have 6 businesses, there are conflict situations, there are difficult times. Each one gets to go home. Each one potentially has another circle around them, a partner or whatever, to kind of bounce things off and get independent feedback. They get to go home, regroup, and come back. Maybe if they're lucky, they have a partner that puts them straight or gives them some different way of looking at things. They come back and they reapproach. If you don't have that, you need to find different ways to get that different perspective and realignment because you don't get it at home. So that is where this is different. A difficulty is the 2 companies that I've worked with that were friends going into partnership. They were great friends, but as business partners, they were incompatible because they could not see things in the same way. One is more strategic, the other one is more operational. The operational person says, this guy's sitting with his feet up the desk, I'm doing all the floor work, and they could not understand and appreciate the different approaches. If you're lucky, a friendship can survive that. In the case where I worked with this team, I actually, in the long run, don't know if the friendship survived it. At the time, it was extremely difficult because they were blaming each other for things not going well. And these were great friends. There was absolutely no reason to think that this was not going to work out. And so that's, I think, the main difference. And you
Yeah.
talk.
So the first, thank you for having us. But there, one of the main advantage from where kind of I sat during that time is that I could trust 1,000,000% that my wife and my business partner has our business and the both of us best interest at heart. Which in some cases, if it's not your spouse, you may not sure what happened in this scenario and in that scenario. Will they have their same? Will we have the same objective? Yes or no? I never had to doubt that, and I never had to think about what will happen if it's not that. But when we did come home, we had some rules that we are not going to discuss the business at home at the dinner table with our kids and things like that. So we had to make sure that we kind of a little bit separate our romantic life, if you will, than the business life.
Yeah, I mean, to let our listeners know, the last two, and I'm sorry if there's some background noise a little bit. There's some work being done. So the last two businesses I started, I have a great business partner, same one. He's fantastic. I am, and it was a really hard decision for me to agree to have a business partner because I had saw so many horror stories on it, and he is my best friend by far. I've known him for 20 years, and we dated for a while before we actually went. Now he's always had business partners, and he loves having business partners, so he was never reluctant. I was, and I'm not saying I thought no, but I didn't think yes. So I was like somewhere in between. So, however, my wife was, just give you some context. She came to work for me for 8 or 9 years. It was very good. She was excellent. Luckily she was in charge of accounting since she was an accountant, and that's a great person to have in that position because like you said, you trust them, really, really well. The problem is I would get home from work, we'd get into bed, and she's starting to tell me who owes us money. And I'm like, I don't want to know about this right now, And so, luckily she knew it was my company, and, I was kind of the boss, but I never treated her that way, I never had to,
But
so
I'll give you a quick anecdote here. So Elma and I speak at either George Washington University Business School or Engineering School, or at the John Hopkins University Business School, and we get a lot of questions many times from young students in the MBA program or something, and basically asking us, should I see the two of you, and I see the two of you are successful or sold your business or whatever businesses. Should I start a business with my wife? I always say immediately, absolutely yes. Elma always said, I would suggest that you talk to me first, and I'll give you the pros and the cons.
yeah, I would say absolutely. If someone asked me that question, I would say absolutely no, because listen, at the end of the day, what's more important? What's more
Well,
important?
it's not either or. As we are proof of the fact that it's not either or. We built this business not with the expectation of a quick turnaround. It wasn't like we started and we say our end game is 5 years and we're going to sell it and build it big. We started building this business, and lo and behold, we started growing, and it started to do very well. And there was potential for this to get bigger and bigger and bigger. It was a step process, a gradual process. The reason I say this to the students is I think you must have some ground rules. And you have to know yourself. There is a really high level of self awareness that's needed when you make that decision. I know myself. I would not work for my husband. I think one of the first things I said is, I know he's very, very technical, very strong in moving big programs and lots of people. And It's not for me. I am also not technical. I can talk a technical talk in a way, but when you ask me two questions, uh, you go too deep for me. So that's just not where I am. But I love organizing a disorganized space. If I come to a restaurant and I see them all running around and nobody's doing anything, I just want to line them up and tell them, how. So I know you have to know that from yourself.
Yeah.
Dov knows that he doesn't have the patience to deal with, building an organizational structure or a governance structure. He wants to do the technical stuff. But somebody, if you're building a company, somebody needs to build and scale the corporate governance part of it. And that's where I came in. And so we knew each other's swim lanes, we knew each other's strengths. I think when I'm talking about ground rule is you must respect each other's swim lane, because there isn't a company without both swim lanes being equal. If you do not have a strong corporate governance, you can have brilliant technical solutions, but there's nothing to make it go. There is no engine on which to move this forward. If you don't scale from 2 people to 10 to 50 to whatever, you're going to implode. If you don't recognize that what's needed. So I think it's important. We were 51-49%. So we were very equal. I told them from the beginning, we will never use the term back office. It's corporate governance, because to me, how you label something is critical to how it's perceived and how it's respected. And how and when we talk about the business. And some of it is really what I'm telling you is in hindsight. Maybe like, oh, that's probably what we should have done. Because, you know always better in hindsight. It's like parenting, right? You know what you should have done.
You think
so that's why I say that to the students is, let's talk, because you have to understand what you're walking into. You have to understand who you are, what your level of tolerance is, how strong your relationship is. Can it withstand that? And you don't know, because you don't know really what you're going into. So it's not an easy, oh yeah, let's do this.
Yeah.
Because then you get to where what you said, what's more important, this or that. So
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I forgot. So when I went, oh boy, sorry about that noise. I apologize. When I went into my second business, well, financing solutions, right? I went into that business, and that business was a high risk business. It always has been. It's interesting. I made a complete change. My wife wasn't involved in that business, and that was purposeful. Because this is the other thing that's kind of interesting. I never, from that point forward, this is 12 years ago, never talked about work again when I got home. So prior to that, we weren't exactly the couple that would talk a lot about work. But when I got home, 12 years ago, I completely stopped talking about work at all. So it was a really interesting change. And I'll tell you what I found that it forces you to get involved in interests and conversations that are outside of work. And what I've found is a lot of people, and I know a lot of business owners really, really closely, really good friends. And I find that them and their significant others talk about work all the time.
yeah, that's a problem.
All the time. They have
Yeah.
no interest outside of work. They
No,
come,
you just-
how was
yeah.
your day? And then they get involved in the problems, and they get involved in all the stuff, and that becomes their lives. And I found, because I didn't do that. Now, listen, granted, my wife and I have we have a lot of interests. So we're not very one dimensional. And but I just wanted to raise that. Did you find that everything that you guys did kind of revolved around work?
So one of the areas that we got engaged a while ago is what we call adventure travel.
It started about 15 years ago.
So we basically said, because we used to go to, New York City or Israel or Netherlands, and your email keeps working, your phone keeps working. It's as if you're at work, just you're in a different physical location. But when we started hiking, we summited Kilimanjaro, or we went to the Italian Dolomite up in the mountain. First, we spend a lot of energy planning it and preparing for it. So it will help us keep in good physical health, if you will. But also it will help us to plan, to understand the risk and how to mitigate it. So we engage in the planning. And then when we go for these activities, you're out of reception most of the time, so which is good. And secondly, it also helped the company, because the company now can see how do they manage without us.
Yes.
So we got engaged in this adventure travel, and we found it as a great way to separate us from the business for some period of time and to plan for it, which both of us like.
Which, by the way, I think regardless, that coincided somewhat with our children leaving the house. Our business matured. In the beginning, you're everything to everybody in the business. You make the coffee, you sign the contracts. I think we learned not to talk all the time about the business, because I've learned pretty quick that my swim lane, he didn't really have a lot of patience for. And for me to then explain, and HR and accounting and contracting, I need another person. He's like, he's got his own swim lane.
I would basically ask, I would ask a simple question every now and then. Are we doing okay financially? She would say yes. Since I trust her 100%, I said, okay, I'm done. Now I can concentrate on my swim lane.
So I think because we were more aware of it, we talked less, I think, about work than if we both had different work and we came home and we needed to unload on each other. So I think that actually was a benefit.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I was thinking earlier, a benefit of building a company together is you build this asset together. You do all your life planning around it together. It's as much mine as it is his. It's, we're building this together 50-50. It's become something that we are very proud of. It's also something that we can now build the rest of our life, and even our children and future generations. It's something that we built together, that really is something that we can take through generations. Part of the reason why we wrote a book, because at some point we won't be around, and we want our great grandchildren to know who Dove and Elma were and how it came to be, how this story came to be. So, but regardless, once you get to that phase of life, business owners are not business owners. Your kids start moving away. I think it is so critical to find something that you both really enjoy, that gets you engaged, that gets you doing together. The alternative is one goes this way playing golf, the other one, and that's fine. I mean, everyone has their own, or you do nothing and you feel bad about that empty nest syndrome. I think we found a way, that something that we both really, really learned to enjoy. I mean, we never hiked 15 years ago. It's something that we built. And it's become part of our life. In where are we going to go next? And that was a great trip. And how do we prepare for the next thing? And what part of the world haven't we seen yet? And what animals, gorillas or bears or penguins, what do we really want to see in life? It's become part of how we now structure our life around, in addition to children and grandchildren, of course.
When you were doing your book, and I don't know if if there's any statistic on there, this is going to be I'll ask the question, but I think it's going to be a challenge. Is there less successful? Do businesses break up more if there is a husband and wife involved than those who don't?
The answer is yes. You want to take that?
I mean, one thing that we do know from the government contracting Washington D.C. area is that there are multiple companies like us where the husband and the wife did divorce, and it's because of many reasons: the strain on the relationship and the strain of growing companies, and that's one thing that we said will not happen to us. Meaning, if we saw that that's the road, we much rather do something with the company and end it, sell it or whatever, as opposed to go to a situation where we do go to this difficulty and end up being separated.
Yeah, that would give me some pause if that's that statistic that would show that, and I'll tell you why too. The way I've always been, all right, I've been doing my own businesses now for over 25 years, 30 years really. I always tried to pick the decisions that gave me the highest probability of success.
Right?
That's just the way my mind works, and it's worked well, honestly. You know, um, Even when it comes to like testing a new product or testing a service, I'm waiting to see, okay, wait a minute, is there customers buying this? Is there, what's the lead generation? That's a weird way to looking at it, but I'm always looking for the highest probability. And I even did that before I started my first business at 29, um, to try to get into a field that, I didn't have to have a home run to be successful at it. I wanted singles. I've always wanted singles, doubles, singles, those type of
Right,
things
right.
in baseball
Mhm.
terms.
Yep.
So that would give me a lot of pause. But let me jump into So I have a question right now that I want to kind of make sure we have enough time for, and that is your guidelines for you've made the decision to go in together on um, husband and wife, or even just partners. I'm not if you're not married, or but if you're living together, or stuff like that. Um, give me some guidelines that you've learned over the years that somebody who's already doing that would say, "Oh, I can really use this stuff."
Yeah.
Take it. Go.
When you start out, you don't really know what you're getting into. Whether you think you do, and the business, whatever solution you're trying to sell, whether it's services or product or whatever you're trying to build, can be absolutely great. But the working relationship you don't really know. So your very basic is what you're assuming is going to cause obstacles down the road. So I think the first thing is who owns what. Who owns what in terms of responsibility, and there's a lot of gray. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray, so it's kind of a constant negotiation. But on an overarching level, again, we go back to the swim lanes, right? We're both swimming in the same direction. We're in the same pool. We're trying to really make this move together, but you're more here and I'm more there. Now,
Yep.
where does this go? And so a ground rule is name it, label it, technical, customer services, and corporate governance. Name it something that has equal weight and not, business and back office. Because just hearing those two words, you do this instead of this.
Yep.
That then leads to equal respect. And I think that is really important, because it's not just the two of us, it's people we're interacting with, customers, vendors, employees, you name it. If they perceive that we respect each other and that we respect, Dov will say, and it happens all the time, especially in the beginning. Somebody would come and talk to us about an insurance or a legal thing or whatever. They would talk to him. They would literally, the body language was to him. And Dov would say, technical is me. All over business, we can talk together. But contracting or accounting, you need to talk to her. And
I hate to say it though, as a woman, aren't you kind of used to that? I mean, isn't because
Of
people,
course.
it's terrible, right?
And because of that, Stephen, because every woman knows that,
Yep.
you know that from the get go, if this is a partnership of different gender, you need to make sure that you both understand those are the situations that are going to come up.
Yeah. And I also know too, as a when dealing with a woman, that I have to be very careful,
Yeah.
to make sure I don't make a mistake that way. And I grew up with two sisters. I had lots of managers who were women who are fantastic. So I'm very familiar with the drive that women have to say, "Hey, wait a minute, I'm not here. I'm not a secretary."
Well,
And it even made me more sensitive to the subject, even when Elma was not there. So
Mm.
let's say we're running a large program and we have a meeting, and there are maybe 20, 30 people in the meeting when people still went to the office before COVID. And what you'll see most of the time, the men would sit around the table and the women will go to the second row around the walls. And I would basically say to the women, hey, come to
Let's
the
go.
table,
Sit down.
because
Yeah.
that's the
the
natural
default.
inclination
Yeah.
of the
And even
gender.
trying to solicit, stuff out. Well, that's another subject matter. So define. So, and I think that's important for what you're saying, Elma, and that is you also got to know the different. There's customer service. There is accounting. There's all these parts of the business. I know when I started my fourth company, what was amazing was because my business partner and I had both had so much business experience in building companies. We were generating incredible revenue in 3 months versus 3 years, what it would taken us when we first started, because we knew we have to do this, we have to do this, we have software for this, we have to do this. So we knew,
Right.
and I think that fits into what you're saying is, know what goes on in a company, and then you kind of have to assign who's going to be responsible for that, just because you don't want to step on toes. And you also might find that one person's better on the other. And by the way, both people might say, "Oh God, I hate that. I hate doing it." Then you have
But
to
then you
find
hire somebody to
you
fill in
hire
that.
someone else to do it, right? Or if Dove took one crappy, thing that you have to do, then Elma, will have to pick one crappy thing too, right?
Well, and with that, for example, by saying that, I uh, I think that is also part of throw me something messy and I will reorganize it. In terms of white papers, in the beginning he would write white papers, but I can take his concept, and after he said, "Will you just look it over?" Well, looking over, I'd have to edit the whole thing, and so at some point I
Keep
said,
in mind, her English is better than mine.
if you haven't noticed. Uh, so again, but awareness, right? Dovik knows, and I know. So I don't know the technology, but I know how to put a white paper, two-page white paper, that it's readable to someone who's not necessarily all that technical. So I'd say, throw whatever concept you have. What's the main idea? I would create a two-page white paper. Then I'd give it, and meanwhile, I learn from that. So I can have half a conversation about something technical if nobody asks me questions, because I just did that, with the white paper. Then I'd give it back to him and say, make sure I didn't like just
Screwed
invent something
up. Yeah,
new or
yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But that way it takes self-awareness. There isn't anything like, well, no, I don't want to give it to you, or none of that. Or why don't you give it to me? You think I'm a secretary? No, I know I'm not a secretary, but I my English sentence structure is better, comes more natural, but I would never know the technology that he knows. So if you have enough self-awareness and you respect what the other one brings to the table, you can create a really good product.
Yeah, I like that word that you use, self-awareness, because let's face it, if you are an extremely, incredibly strong-willed, stubborn person, right, and you know that, and I don't know if I could think of some more adjectives to describe someone who probably should not have a business partner. I don't care if you're married or not. You probably shouldn't have a business partner, right? You're just
Right.
too. It's going to be too many fights, and and like I know one thing with me. I've played, so I played a lot of sports at a very high level, and I don't care if somebody gets all the notoriety as long as I win. That's the way I am.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't care. I don't care if my partner does better things at me. Good for him. I don't care. Right now, luckily, I have a very incredible partner who's just amazing, and business partner, and he, we're best friends. It's just unbelievable how lucky I am. But he's like, "Are you sure you want me to do this?" And I'm like, "If we win, you're better at it than I am. I don't care." So, I think that so it goes back to the disposition that you have. So, what else? What else? You talked about one before, which a lot of people talk about, is like, don't talk about work at home. How did you handle that?
Don't work. Well, it didn't always. We didn't always stay
Yeah,
true to
that's
it,
fair.
right? It happens. And if you have conflict at work, and then you both get in the car, or you get in separate cars, but you're both in the house, and it does spill over. And
Yeah,
but it's about the intent. The default is, the intention is, we're not bringing conflicts, business conflicts, home.
yeah,
And in the beginning, the office was at home. It was in an attic.
yeah.
But so we were speaking metaphorically. Once I go down the stairs from the attic, it
That's
stays there.
it.
It doesn't
Yeah,
always happen. And I think over time you learn the level of tolerance. I learned not to talk about, relatively minor governance issues. Of course, I would say, we need a line of credit. Or I would say, I think we may have some liability here or there. These are
risks to the business.
risks to the business. And so,
Yeah.
of course, that's
or enabler of the business, like a
Right.
line of credit.
But what you do then is, I found a business mentor. I found somebody else that I could talk over things and through things, because I did not have a business background. Like, is this normal? What do I do here? How do I take this? How do I go through this? So that did not all pile on to the relationship. And the business part of it was really those, like he said, what those parts, those things that were risk to the business, those things that were good to the business. Shall we bid on this? It's risky, it's expensive, but the payoff could be big. Strategic moves to the business.
Right. I mean, it wasn't, binary 1 or 0, yes, talk or not talk at home, but we were trying to minimize that.
yeah,
And especially, when we had younger kids at the time, and we would have a dinner with them, and they couldn't care less about, all the problems or the challenges that we have in a company, kind of thing. So we were trying to stay away from that.
yeah. I mean, I did. You learn as you go along. Like I told you, like when Gina used to bring it up to me, and late at night, I'd be like, could you talk about this to me tomorrow at work instead? And so you just kind of have a ground rule. It wasn't like she learned. She
It's
learned.
not a fight, but
It wasn't
I had
a fight.
one. Right. I
Yeah.
had a client once, a mother and a daughter, an adult daughter and a mother. They had business together. And there are all these pitfalls. This is a different type of relationship, but still, it's a family relationship. So one of the things we talked about is to have maybe 2 or 3 hours every Friday, and I've talked about this with other people as well, set aside, let's say every Friday from 3 to 5 or whatever, doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. But that is the time for everything that is not a hair on fire situation, right? Sometimes if something really critical happens on Monday, you can't wait until Friday. But a lot of things can wait. First, it's a cooling off period. You can mull it over, you can think it over, write it down, and then you have an executive meeting over coffee or drinks or whatever. That's where you discuss everything that needs to be discussed before you go home for the weekend. You decide time, place, duration, everything, but set aside some time in the office to discuss business related issues so that they are cleared and hopefully out of the way before you go into your family relationship.
And a good friend of ours said once, 99% of the things that I was worried about really never happened then or never materialized. So by the time you give it some cooling period, some of the things that we were kind of frazzled during the day,
They solve themselves.
they solve themselves
Yeah.
if you wait a day or so,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I'm not saying everything solves itself, but some of it does.
Yeah, what's crazy is that if I were to start a seventh business, which there isn't any plans for that, but if I were to start a seventh business, and I would still be reluctant to start it with a different business partner, I would be a little wary, and even though I have some really good experiences, again, it goes back to the high probability decision making that I kind of like to do. But I'm open minded enough. I'd be like 51% yes and 49% no.
It's if somebody were to ask me, and people have asked us sometimes.
Would you do it again?
No, but if somebody asked me, should I go into business with this person or that person or that person? I had this conversation once with a young woman, and she was going to go into business with someone. And my question to her was, do you really need this business partner, or is it a skill set that you can hire somebody and you will be the sole decision maker? What do you need that person for?
Yeah.
So I think that if you start out as a person that is an entrepreneur that wants to start a business, and you have the opportunity to bring in a business partner at whatever impactful level, not a 5%, but you really have to ask yourself, do I need this? What are the pros? What are the cons? What is so just I know we are talking about Eldov. The business that we built and sold is Dove Technologies. The business that we started afterwards, this is our second one together, is Eldov. We flipped the name. And Eldov, we actually are investing in very early startup health IT type solutions that bring a benefit to the people, to the public, basically. So I just want to make sure that, because I'm not sure that was in the introduction.
Yeah.
But back to that, I think that you really need to ask yourself, do I need a partnership, or can I hire that skill set in? And would that not be an easier, simpler situation?
Was there complications? And I can't think of one, but you tell me, from the accounting financial end. Was there any problems on that end? Was there any? I mean, I'm assuming you paid each other the same. I'm assuming. Did you keep separate personal bank accounts? Do does it all go in one pot? Anything that's outside of, anything that would be out of the ordinary that a regular business, would do or wouldn't do if you weren't married.
Well, there's a lot of planning going on. Well, we paid ourselves the same salary, and then there were earnings distributions and tax distributions. Then once we saw that this company was really growing, we recognized the need to do some planning. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So at a certain point, we said, first, originally, Elma wasn't a U.S. citizen. She was a green card holder. And if you're a green card holder, there's some complication in case I passed away. So anyway, we got engaged into estate planning, which then moved into the company. And how do you structure the company, and how do you make sure that we had the same equal shares, if you will, and how do you get it into the trust? But one thing that we say today to everybody that we are talking to is, make sure that you're starting to think about it and you have all the right planning early on, not 4 hours before you're trying to sell your business or something like that, to do a change of control. And make sure that both of you are comfortable with that, with the type of planning and what will happen after the change of control. How is the money going to be going divided? Where is it going to? And all kind of things like that. So there's a lot of, in my mind, there's a lot of complication, but you do want to start think about it early on.
Yeah.
So that it's not coming as a surprise, because you can't sort it all out just before you do a transaction.
What you see with business owners, entrepreneurs, when you start talking to them about, so what are you doing with respect to the end game? What's your exit strategy with respect to yourself? They say, oh, I want to sell, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine. And there's a whole conversation around that, how you prepare your company to private equity or strategic, all of that. But what are you doing on the personal level? And invariably the answer will be, I don't really want to think about that. I'm having fun, blah, 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 and all of that. And we keep pushing that subject because you do have to think about it. First of all, it takes really a lot of time to get comfortable with the different trusts and the different strategic planning on your life and your financial life. It takes a while to find the right team, to find the right tools, and all of that. And in addition, as the value of your company grows from whatever to whatever, there are lifetime gift exemption implications that you need to plan around as your company value grows. And you need a team for that. And you need to really educate yourself. Meanwhile, you're running a business. So it's not like you're taking now a month to educate yourself. You talk to someone and then 2 months go by because, things happen in the business. So it does take a lot of time just because you don't find that to be the most important thing. And there's a lot of other things going on in your life.
But you have to keep in mind, because both of us are in the same business, then our nest egg is in that business together. Yeah. It's different than if one of the couple is in this business and the other one is an employee of another company, because you now have two different.
It's just I just see it. It's such a problem. You got a 50% divorce rate. You got everybody, like all the finances are in one location. You have a 50%. Going back to the concept of high probability, 50% divorce rate. You got a business, then you separate, and then you're going to work. You're hating each other. It's
a nightmare.
It's
incredibly scary.
And we see that happen. So when you say, do you see a higher incidence of companies not working out because of the partners being married? I think you cannot separate those two. If the relationship is strong here, it's much better chance of being there. And whatever here and there is, it works both ways. But one thing I wanted to mention as well, something that I never thought about until our planning team pointed it out. If you have the equity of your business in a trust, let's say, and the beneficiaries of your trust are your kids, this is a common way to plan around it. So now we go on all these adventure travels. We find the gorillas, we find the bears, we hike Kilimanjaro, we do all that. We do it together. Something happens to the two of us. Now, what's going to happen with that? How do the kids, who were at the time very young adults, college age, how do they manage the tax implications and all of that of suddenly this coming their way?
Because they will have to,
they'll have to pay tax.
They will have to pay tax within 6 months in general on a fairly large company, which you cannot sell within 6 months, really. And so they suddenly have to pay a lot of tax on something that they have nothing.
So it's a tax. And at the time, we had brought in a CEO to manage that maturing and change of control phase. And we never thought of it. So we had an insurance policy, which has the terrible name of second to die policy, because if it's just one of us, the whole thing moves to the other. It's a non-taxable event between spouses. But if both of us are the second to die, then that policy kicks in kind of mitigating the taxable event to the beneficiaries. And we even told the CEO that we brought in, this is what we put in place, so you don't ever have to worry. I mean, it isn't unlikely, but the thing with insurance is you have it hoping that you'll never need it, right? And this was one of them. For years, we had that policy in place,
so
just in case.
If something happened to us, both of us at the same time,
or one after another,
then that insurance company will kick in and will give the kids enough money to pay the tax, so that they won't have to worry about selling.
Well, I can let you guys in on something. I mean, I've mentioned it before. So a year and a half ago, my wife passed away unexpectedly.
Oh.
Yeah. And we were married for 26. Thank you. And we were married for 26 years. We had a fantastic marriage. It was a terrible situation, a shock. It was the way it happened. So we're not going to get into that, but unexpected, kind of the worst thing, everybody's worst nightmare. Okay. Now the interesting, what we all can learn from this, because I think eventually I'm going to be doing motivational speaking down the road. I think this area of, what do you learn from this is very important. And we're going to run out of time. I couldn't talk about it all, but in regards to what you're talking about, so you should know I'm a planner. I planned for me to go. And I also was always worried about my business partner going. Okay. I never planned for Gina to go. So, however, because I planned for me to go, forget the trust things, the trust benefits and all those other things. Passwords. Just understanding where all your passwords are. Okay.
Yeah.
So we actually would do a little bit of a dry run, believe it or not. Okay. Now my wife is an accountant, so that was good because she knew numbers and she knew what was going on with the business enough on that end. But knowing now we also had life insurance policies on both of us. I'm going to tell you, I have money. Having that life insurance policy on Gina allowed me to spend a lot of money on the kids. We went to Kenya on vacation, because every year my family would go on very nice vacations. Africa, we had never been there for 2 weeks. They understand. They were like, oh, wow, this is, they just lost their mom. We didn't go immediately, but so, that $1 million life insurance made life easier on me because, when you have a business, it's not, you don't have cash sitting there lying around. Right. People think, oh, you're a business owner, you must be rolling in the dough. It's all in accounts receivable. It's all in wherever. It's just not that liquid. And so, having a life insurance policy to me is, but it really saved. I mean, I would have been okay, but we did a lot of really, my son wanted to go to camp. Wanted to go to an expensive camp, go. Tennis, go. All this different stuff, So my advice to everybody is, and I hope you follow it, I doubt you will, do a dry run. Do a dry run. Okay, I just died. What do you need to know? Where are the files? What's the combination in the safe? I'm going to, tell there's a lot of terrible stories here. Going to my wife's funeral, right? I couldn't find the combination for the safe and I needed it for her birth certificate.
Yep.
You know what I'm thinking about the next 2 weeks? The damn safe, right? Because there's a lot of important documents that are in there. And, it ended up being no problem. My friend's like, oh, you just go on the internet and the company that makes it has it on file and they'll send it to you again. I was like, oh, I've been sitting there for 2 weeks worrying about it. It's
really, I think the human factor in that is that we don't want to plan for something we don't even want to think about.
Yeah.
That really is a problem. Like right now, when we started planning this trust and this and that and selling the company, one of the overriding factors.
You start thinking about it.
You start thinking about it, and what will happen if suddenly the both of us are no longer here?
Yeah.
Or even just one of us, the other one is going to not be in any state to really think about. So our children now are 34 and 36, but from adult age, our son, we told him, this is the person you need to talk to. Mark, what will you do if suddenly something happens to us? He said, so you talk to Stephen.
Yep.
You talk to this person, and this person will know
This person is like
everything you need to do.
Knows the root of the tree. They will tell you everything.
Yeah, and I would just
looking at things, and we said, we're leaving. If we were to go now, we are leaving our kids a nightmare. We can't do that.
Yeah. And I would just recommend do a dry run. And listen, I would tell you from really personal experience, it made my ability to mourn easier because there were certain things that we did that was easy for me to understand. I mean, the password is a simple one. It's really valuable nowadays. So, I was able to mourn because of it and much easier because of so listen, just, let me let you in a secret, everybody. You're going to die. Okay. You're going to die. My wife was 56. My wife was 56 years
You
old.
had to do this, really?
Yeah. My wife was 56. I'm 58. I mean, no, she died at 53, 54. And, it was a year and a half ago. Wait, so yeah, she was 54. And so my wife was 54 and I'm now 58. We were both going on like 25. We both had very young personalities. You never think we were expecting to spend the next 30 years of our lives together. We have very long longevities in our family, incredible genetics, and it just never kind of crossed our mind. And now I feel 58 now. And I really do. So what's crazy. So listen, I'm just going to leave you with a statistic and then we got to unfortunately wrap this up. So I went to a great organization called Good Grief that helps families get into a support group and helps my sons and me, and we're separated into different groups. And one of the things you find out is 1 out of every 11 children under the age of 19 will lose a spouse or a sibling.
Wow.
1 out of 11, okay, will lose a spouse. I'm sorry, a mom or dad, or a sibling. So once I didn't know anybody like that, right? It's, someone who's a child, yes. But once I joined this group, all of a sudden I started meeting all these people, not just in the group, but other people outside the group. Oh, I lost my wife. Oh, I'm a widow. Oh, I lost my child. It happens so much more frequently, not to depress everybody, than you think. So here's a high probability again, right?
Yep.
So on behalf of both of us, and I'm sure everyone that's listening, we're so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Really. I think this is something. I'm very involved in a hospice organization. We have a very strong bereavement program where we reach out, the team reaches out to loved ones every month for 13 months after a loss. And it is so important to recognize that. I think you only know what it's like if you go through it. So
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And I am doing incredibly well. I'm incredibly resilient, and my kids are too. So, again, I could spend another podcast, talking on and on, and that's going to be a speech eventually. But I am doing extremely well, and you'd be surprised. Doesn't mean that I don't have terrible moments, and so it is what it is. But
it never goes away, right?
It doesn't.
It finds a place somewhere.
Yeah, and you can love two people too. So I've started dating already, and I found somebody who lost her husband 3 years ago, and so there's it happens. So anyway, that's that's all the time we have for today. I'd like to thank so very much Elma and Dove Levy from the Eldov Group LLC for coming on today's podcast. And if you like today's podcast, please feel free to share it with a friend and also subscribe on your favorite podcasting app. And please, if you like today's podcast or any of the other ones we've done and you're willing to give it a 5-star, please give us a review. It helps us get the word out. And if you're looking for a line of credit for your business, you can call us at 862-207-4118 or visit our website at fscreditline.com. That's FS is a Financing Solutions creditline.com. Elma and Dove, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, how would they go about doing that?
Elma.levy@eldovgroup.com and Dove Levy at eldovgroup.com.
Dove.Levy.
Dove.Levy. Elma.Levy. Dove.Levy at eldovgroup, eldovgroup.com.
And
Or
your book,
you can look at our book on Amazon.
yeah, I was going to ask you about the book, and the book is
It's
called,
on Amazon.
Yeah, what's it called again, the book?
Um,
Partner in life and in business.
I know. I'm telling you, Stephen, one day we'll write a book about writing a book together. That's a whole different.
There you go. Well, there you go.
Partnership in life and work or something like that.
But you put our name, you'll find it on Amazon.
Elma Levy, Dove Levy, and you'll find it on Amazon. And then there's the website, eldovgroup.com, www.eldovgroup.com.
Yeah, I would highly recommend if you're thinking of going into business with your significant other, or if you're already in business with your significant other, just get the book. Just get the book, right? There's no way we're going to cover all the stuff in the book that's here. Right. I would probably be one of the best investments that you would make, the best thing for time. And there's nothing like learning from experience. That's why this podcast is here, is to learn from people who have done it already, not from people who say, "Oh, I've read it," and whatever. It's you have to be there to understand it. So other than that, I want to, today's podcast is on January 6th of 2023. I want to wish everybody a happy new year, a healthy, happy new year. Listen, the last thing I'm going to say here is, I've learned this. Entrepreneurship is a marathon, not a sprint. And you have to take good care of yourself. You're no good to your family. You're no good to your friends. You're no good to your business if you are not at your best every single day. And that includes exercising and sleep and diet. So take good care of yourself, because it all is going to come back at the end if you don't. And it's just as important for you to take good care of yourself as it is for you to be good at your business. So everybody, have a fantastic day. And again,
thank you so much, Stephen.
Thank you very much.
We really enjoyed it. It's amazing. We could talk for another hour.
Yeah, I know.
Because this whole take good care of yourself, we could talk about that for an hour.
Well, anybody who's been an entrepreneur knows. So
yes.
yeah,
That's right. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed it.
It was nice meeting both of you.